and comment about it in newspapers. Talking about racism publicly, not in the abstract, but in raw and personal terms, made me feel that I had broken some unwritten, self-imposed rule. Not long after the series was broadcast, in the midst of my discomfort, I watched another documentary that was part of the same season. Within that programme, to my intense relief, David Harewood gave an interview in which he too spoke candidly of his encounters with British racism. As David recounted shocking experiences from his past, describing them in stark detail, suddenly I felt less alone and less exposed. David's decision to talk openly about what had happened to him seemed somehow to validate my own. I later discovered from letters and emails sent by viewers who had watched that season of programmes that other people of colour had been deeply affected by watching well-known, and in David Harewood's case, A-list famous black people discussing racism and its impact upon their lives in such frank and personal terms. Meeting David Harewood a year later at that party gave me an opportunity to explain what his openness had meant to me, how it had reassured me that my own decision to discuss my past had been the right one. We talked about why it was we had never previously felt able to discuss such experiences publicly, and of how so many other black people had similar stories to tell, stories that only seemed to emerge occasionally and always in private settings. Like many black people who had encountered the racism of Britain in the 1970s and 1980s, David and I had locked away not just our memories of racist incidents, but also, and perhaps more importantly, our memories of how those events had been damaging assaults on our sense of self. In this book, David Harewood writes with rare honesty and fearless self-analysis about exactly such experiences, his upbringing and his encounters with racism from childhood onwards. He explores how the hostility of strangers collided with his developing sense of self and his relationship with Britain, and with his own blackness. Such experiences, combined with other factors, ultimately led to what David describes as the deepest, darkest moment in his life, his descent into psychosis at the age of 23. With equal candour, David plots the story of his recovery, a long journey that took him from Birmingham's Hollymoor Psychiatric Hospital to the lights of Hollywood. This book is in itself a physical manifestation of that hopeful journey. The process of writing these pages demanding the painful disinterring of long-buried details from David's darkest of moments, and a confrontation with the contents of a file containing the medical records from his weeks in Hollymoor Hospital. The reticence felt by many black Britons when it comes to talking frankly about their experiences of racism and racial violence is very often accompanied by an even deeper resistance to discussing the issue of mental health. Yet the need for such discussions are arguably greater and more urgent amongst black Britons than any other demographic. Within Britain's black communities there exists a mental health crisis, the details of which are largely debated through statistics. Those numbers reveal, amongst other things, that black people in Britain are far more likely than white people to suffer forms of mental ill health that lead to them being hospitalised. However, no matter how shocking such statistics might be, and no matter how skillfully and sensitively they are deployed by journalists and the authors of reports, they remain just statistics, mere numbers that are incapable of conveying the human toll of this crisis. By bravely recounting his own experiences of both his psychosis and his recovery, David makes real and tangible a phenomena that too often is met with hushed silence and inaction. Some listeners might be surprised that a memoir written by such a celebrated actor explores the politics of